back for another Wage Rage. I'm Anthony Scott Piatt. This is Miguel Iterati. Looking at Cinco de Mayo coming up. Of course, you've got Canelo Alvarez and John Ryder. And we've also got some great UFC, Aljimain Sterling, Henry Cejudo. And we're going to get a little sort of connected thing going on here. A little Demetrius coming from Miguel. Let's recap last week real quick, Miguel. I say last week, last show. For UFC, I got to give you a little love. Sergey Pavlovich, you called that one at a plus 136, plus 150 even. Great story there, man. Kudos on that pick. That one came through real well. We'll show you on the screen as we go here, folks. But Miguel, excellent pick.
Yeah, it was one of those fights with Curtis Blades that Blades was having money come in on him, and for good reason. You really have to either have an instinct for one guy or the other. And I felt that Pavlovich had that runaway train look, and he's now up to 6. And he's not a runaway train like completely out of control either. He also looks like some of the better Russians we've seen. He's got a little bit of that Fedor demeanor. More so, he reminds me of Igor Vovchanchin. And, those are very dangerous men. So
yeah, he's got momentum, is what you're saying. I mean, it's momentum with a lot of force behind it. yeah.
First round knockouts in a row.
That's right. That's
not
right.
even spread out in a row. And that's that runaway train feel. And Blades, I thought his chances were going to start in the second round. I thought if Blades could weather the storm, that his veteran nature, the longer fights, you start relying on first round fights, you may be very gassed heading into round 2.
Yeah.
And couldn't get there. And that's indicative that, Pavlovich may be ready or maybe one fight away. They're going to have to do Stipe and John Jones. And I don't know if Pavlovich will sit and wait. I hope he doesn't, but, we'll see how it goes.
It's really interesting. It's been a lot of fun to watch. And again, great call there. We did really well in boxing too, from Joe Cordina by points and decision for the plus 110 that we talked about did hit. Ryan Garcia did get knocked out by Tank. We mentioned how the method of victory exact, the KO instead of KO and TKO, was playing at plus 185. So we hit that as well as the KO, TKO, just in case at minus 145, and just had a great time with it. We had Beck the Bully, wasn't a bully enough, didn't knock out Gabriel Rosado. So we missed one of our smaller parlays. But the round robins, as we try and explain, folks, I put 20 in on one and got $30.70 back. And that's, again, with losing that Beck the Bully fight. This is why we love those round robins. You can get your money back, even make some profit. I'll take 50% extra on my money and as a little insurance. I love it. So Gervonta by knockout we got, and we want to mention too that there's another way that we ended up taking after the show. So if you guys want to follow, I followed Ryan Garcia to be knocked out down in rounds 1 through 6 was a plus 210. I didn't find that till after the show, but I put a lot of those on all the different social medias you can find me. A lot of stuff that I put out I do love on Sharps. It's Sharps app. If you want to follow me there, you sign up with the code PIAT186. They help and support the show, so that'll let them know that we're sending people their way, so we appreciate it. And that's where I'll put a lot of this stuff. It's very easy to share there. Click, send it out, people can see it. I don't have to cut and paste and do all this. So the things that might be sort of a live bet, or this one I found an hour before the fight, I can get it out there fairly quickly and everybody can see it. So check out Sharps app, PIAT186, where I'll put even more bets than we make on our Piatt Pick show. So keep that in mind. Had a great weekend that weekend. We also hit with the Bet US lock. We've hit several weeks in a row on those. These are where I'm putting $100 on these. It's the biggest bet of the weekend usually. Um, Very chalky. Sandy Ryan to win, for example, was minus 700, and Jordan Thompson minus 600. Those were sort of the tougher ones, and then you had a couple of easier ones at minus 1600. But you put those five together, your 100 gives you back 85.94. I did another one since we've been on air that paid 83.98. We just got done with that one, so we'll show both of those on $100 and $150 bet. And those are on Bet US. The neat thing there, Miguel, there was only this list last weekend 3 fights on, and that's why we didn't do a show, but there were only 3 fights on FanDuel. But Bet US gave me those 6 fights so I could have enough fights to build something that was pretty much a sure win. We call it the lock, and we were able to get that. So between those 2 places, you can see even more of the picks than you're going to catch on here. Last minute stuff. Looking forward now, let's get to Sal Canelo Alvarez versus John Ryder. Official pick's going to come later in the week on Piatt Picks for me, Miguel. But listen, Ryder is a big underdog. Let's face it. He's a plus 940, and Canelo's a minus 1800. But having said that, I think he's ranked 5th in the division. He beat Parker to get the mandatory, something that Boo Boo Andre backed out of twice. I think he backed out of 4 fights in a row with Janabek twice and Parker twice. But if Boo Boo had fought Parker, he would be mandatory. So look, it's not the stiffest competition Canelo's going to face, but I think we can find value in this fight. If we look at how they both approach the fight, how they come out, probably not going to see any early knockout. Probably going to look at some mid-round knockout prop bets for this later in the week. Maybe around 7th. We'll dig into it a lot more and come up with something shortly. Those of you follow me on social media, we bet Zepeda 1 through 3 and 1 through 4. And I also had him for 3rd round. He did it in the 2nd. That was yesterday. Those paid really well. And that's the sort of bet that we'll look at for Canelo. So other fights on that card will be Joshua Buatsi coming back, probably going to get the knockout this time. He didn't last time, but just to give a little respect to his opponent, this Craig Richardson, right? Oh my gosh, 17-3. But I just want to say he lost to Buatsi 115-113 on 2 judges, and 2 fights before that, Craig Richards had lost to Dimitri Bivol 115-114, 115-113. So the guy does not get knocked out. So the fact that Buatsi didn't knock this guy out last time doesn't really dissuade me from probably taking the knockout. We'll figure out how to get the most value out of that fight. And then Lauren Price, just a couple of quick notes on Lauren Price. 2020 Olympic gold medalist, as well as a Commonwealth, I believe, bronze medalist from 2014. She's 3-0 coming into this fight. She's fighting Kirsty Bavington, who just recently beat Naomi Mans, and that's the last fight for Lauren Price, was beating Naomi Mans. Really interesting story here. If you know, Karis Artenstall is also an Olympian. She won the silver or bronze. I'm sorry, let me double check. She won the bronze at the 2020 Olympics. Karis did. Same Olympics as her partner. These girls live together, life partners. And Lauren Price is 145. Karis is 125. They're not going to fight each other, thankfully. And they don't even like to fight on the same cards because they help train and support each other. They want to be there for each other. It's a really cool story. So she's a big favorite, but the fight still makes sense. The only time they fought together, by the way, was the card Michaela Meyer versus Baumgartner, Marshall and Shields. You had Carolyn Dubois on that. And so they were both 1-0 going into that and fighting. So big amateur backgrounds, kind of that power couple, if you will, in women's boxing. Not the 2 girls you want to smart off to in a bar, some one of these guys being an idiot, you're going to have your hands full. So watch for that fight. We may end up putting that on one of these Bet US locks, something where we can get enough people, because she's a minus 3,000 right now, even though the fight does make a lot of sense. She's 3-0, but probably not a single bet we can make on it, but we can include her in a parlay. So that's what we're kind of looking forward to in boxing. And then UFC, again, you've got an interesting angle on this one I really want to hear about. Aljamain Sterling, Henry Cejudo, that's the main UFC card, but you've got sort of a triangulation, somebody who's fought him twice in Demetrius, and break that down for us a little bit.
Well, ONE FC, the Asian martial arts company that considers themselves, on par worldwide with the UFC, is making their UFC debut, or their American debut rather, in Denver on this weekend. And they're headlining with Demetrius Johnson, obviously, former UFC champion Demetrius Johnson, who, they let go from the contract so he can go to ONE, and he's been doing great over there. Has more or less cemented his legacy and with everything he's done over there, including trying out high-level Muay Thai fights and things like that. So he's a real martial artist, and that they're bringing in his rival Adriano Moraes. Moraes knocked him out. Demetrius Johnson used the same move to knock Moraes out in the rematch. And
Sweet justice, revenge.
And now we got the rubber match,
Love
and
it.
the headline in Denver. And Demetrius, Henry Cejudo, we're talking about the best fighters of that weight class. Aljimain Sterling, Moraes has to be included in that conversation. So I didn't want to let the one fight go by, and the odds are pretty reasonable on that fight. I think Demetrius is probably a minus 150 favorite right now, and that's based on his pedigree and name recognition. Some people may find value in Moraes. Moraes already beaten him once. Go back and watch the fights and decide for yourself. We'll see if we make a pick here on Thursday at the Piatt Picks. But I want to take you back to boxing a little bit.
Oh, back to boxing. Let's go.
John Ryder, people are writing this guy off, and I think at the very least, what are the books having? I think maybe skill wise, I plus 450 would be good. Anything above that, they're disrespecting this guy. That's in my opinion.
And I think you'll find that you're going to feel that way, because he's at a 940. Yeah. He's at a plus 940 on that one, Miguel, with Sal at a minus 1800. Now, if you look at method of victory, they think Alvarez at a minus 370 currently from what they picked originally and where the money's gone. Alvarez by decision plus 430. But if you want to look at John Ryder, as you're suggesting here, plus 1,700 for decision and plus 1,600 for knockout. So they think the knockout's slightly more likely. But let's see. I can do the math. I
don't know if Ryder's I'm not necessarily saying Ryder's gonna win the fight, but I think Ryder's a little bit better fighter, and the odds hint at here.
And the plus 940, right.
What I want to look at is, that British scene in that weight class is a pretty robust. Like the guys that he actually has taken losses to, a lot of the times are, rival fights when they're coming up and stuff. And they're guys that were like Nick Blackwell's not, Rocky Fielding. These guys may not be guys. Those guys were solid fighters. He also, took a loss to Billy Joe Saunders. There's really no shame in that. Saunders, was a recent opponent of Canelo. Canelo, did the job on him, but Saunders is not a joke either. So he's got a high level of competition. And I think that gives the British guys some confidence. And that's what I would look at. If Ryder actually, took off and said, I'm training in Big Bear. I want, no distractions, and took this dead serious more than he's ever has, or if he just stayed in his routine and trained. If he tried to jump up a level, he may have a little bit of an element of danger there.
Well, he's got the motivation. I mean, you would think, there's reason to do so.
With the record he has, there's an opportunity that could have gone to somebody else. He should be making the most of it.
I'm looking at his record now. Speaking of that, and let me just back you up a little bit there,
All
Miguel.
those British guys, every one of the British guys that he took losses to,
That's
are
right.
all solid fighters that jumped up a level since those fights. Also,
And
but like,
and and,
there's no shame in many of those losses.
and you're talking 115, 114 against Billy Joe Saunders, barely lost.
Mhm.
Now Nick Blackwell did knock him out. That was sort of surprising to me, I guess. But then as you go up, Rocky Fielding was a split decision. Rocky didn't even beat him on all the judges' cards. And then Callum Smith, which we've seen how
Yeah,
surprising of a beast that guy is to everybody recently. Um, so, that whole family, they can fight. So
yeah,
uh, he took him out 116, 112, 117, 111. I mean, easily enough, but not devastating. I mean, he fought with Callum Smith. Let's give the guy his credit. So I do see what you're saying. With Callum, but then again, Alvarez beat Callum. Alvarez beat Billy Joe
yeah.
Saunders.
No,
So
and this the situation here is this: do you happen to catch Canelo at the right moment? Because what you need now is you need a few things to be working in your favor. And at this point, we haven't talked about Canelo between myself and yourself. Some time has gone by. So when we used to talk about him, for a run of a couple of years that we had, he was still 27 years old in his prime.
yeah. Yeah, because those of you that don't know, we started doing this in 2016 on the
Yeah,
old Cage Rage, which is where Wage Rage was born. So yeah, we did, and we did it for a number of years, starting in 2016. So yes, we've
yeah.
talked about a lot of these fighters when they were in different phases, their prime versus not prime. Yes,
So
there's
I
new.
actually had to look it up. I actually had to look it up, and Canelo's going to be 33 in July. 33 still in his prime. He looks obviously that he's taking care of his body throughout. You always see him working. I always see video of him just destroying heavy bags with body punches, and
Right.
him getting stronger and thicker. As he's gone up in weight classes and stuff. I think he's taking good care of himself. But at the end of the day, he started when he was 15, and he has a lot of miles.
That's right.
And is there going to be a drop off at some point? Maybe this
Right.
isn't the time, but that's something that you want to start looking at as he continues to go in, and he'll be 34, 35.
Right.
It's going to catch up to Canelo at some point.
And there'll be
Can
a
Ryder
lot of value in that if you can pick when the decline has happened or when a guy is lucky enough to catch him because there has been some decline. But yeah, you're talking like a surprise knockout or something.
and
If you're able to catch that the first time it happens, you're going to get paid really well.
yeah, and you want to look for signs of that because Ryder, I give, like I said, when I saw it was John Ryder, I know who he was because back in those days is when that pool of British guys where to be honest, the analysis I give of that is that it was Saunders who at the end was the cream of the crop of that group of guys. But because
Right.
they were all battle tested between each other, that's what made Saunders so good until Canelo proved that Saunders may have been second. So no shame in that. But this guy's battle tested. I wouldn't just look at his record and say, plus 2,000 or whatever. And hopefully he took it seriously. Hopefully he's going there with intent. And again, Canelo's at 33. I see his social media. I live in Costa Rica. I see Latino social media a little more maybe than Americans, and he has an extensive social media backing uh, in the Spanish language, and he's living a good life.
Yeah.
He's living a
Yeah.
very good life. So if his
Yeah.
drop, a friend of mine who was a UFC title contender said, if you don't have somebody pushing you and you don't have somebody doing it, you get complacent. I was supposed to run a 5 mile sprint, but I decided to not run it, so maybe I could do legs more the next day. And then when you get to legs more the next day, maybe you don't, you start talking and managing yourself. And I don't know if Canelo's going to be falling into that yet. I think he's got
Right.
good stuff.
Yeah.
But
Well, and then the extreme though, that can go really bad with certain, but it can just be complacency or laziness Or it
Yeah,
could
the
be,
Marvin Hagler said it, Marvin Hagler
yeah,
said it best. It's hard to get up and do your 5-mile run at 5 in the morning when you're sleeping on silk sheets.
right.
And,
That's it.
and, and
That's it.
Canelo has been sleeping on silk sheets for a long time.
That's
John
it.
Ryder, I think, would classify, I hope John's doing good financially and stuff. I'm not questioning that, but I don't think he's gotten to the silk sheet stage like Canelo yet. So hopefully he's still got that hunger and that fire,
Yep.
because Canelo's been at the top and at the top of the money food chain,
Right.
basically Mayweather left.
Long time. Right.
So,
So if a guy that's really, really hungry, right. I mean, you're looking at, you're looking at the classic Rocky movie type situation here. The guy with quite a few losses, but still hungry. Um, Maybe not as extreme as a club fighter. They're not trying to call John Ryder a club fighter, but he is the guy that's taken those losses going up against the champ. This is the biggest shot he's ever had in his life. And truthfully, just like Rocky, if he makes it to the end of this fight, that's somewhat of a victory because I'm going to pick him to get knocked out. So his ability to go on to some other big fights can be actually enhanced by this fight, even in a loss. And that's where it's a little bit like the fictional Rocky to me.
yeah, I'm not picking against Ryder, but I think that there's some like Canelo went to decision with Golovkin. He went to after taking the Bivol loss, another decision, another fight. It did Canelo lose a little bit of the snap from age 31 to 33, and you can count on this guy to get to the end.
Right.
That might be there's some
There might
possibilities
be some value there. That
and
might be some
open up. You
value
got
there.
to look. You don't underestimate Ryder because I think the odds don't take full value of his skill. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
If
and I
Canelo,
think that's what's great about these
I,
shows
I,
is that
if
we're parsing this stuff out and we can go do some more research, Miguel. And I think you might be onto something. There may just be some wonderful value in it. Can he go the distance? This might
Ryder,
be, you
Ryder and
know,
those guys, I credit them being from that British system, so I know they're educated on the sport. I think Ryder would, if he's honest, knows he's the underdog. He knows
sure.
he's facing a better guy, but I'm saying with his pedigree, I don't think that is going to that he has the possibility of that not flustering him. And if you feel you have a chance with Canelo, that's a lot of the battle. A lot of guys
Yeah.
have lost a fight before. So I don't know. I don't. This gives us some stuff to research. How does he arrive in Mexico? The fight's in Mexico. It's another
Yeah.
reason why the odds may be that way. But maybe all Mexico is voting Canelo for because they love him
Well,
still, but they're not analyzing that Ryder's coming in hungry.
yeah.
I don't know.
Something else we have to consider too, Miguel, because it is in Mexico. Um, I don't believe that's actually in Mexico City. It's in his hometown, which is outside of Mexico City,
Jalisco
right?
or something. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think he's on the coast.
Okay, so he wouldn't be the elevation wouldn't be an issue there then, right? Because I recently come to find out that Mexico City is actually a mile and a half above sea level, whereas
Yep.
Denver is the mile high city. But you
Yep.
have trouble when you go to Denver to play football. Think about boxing at a mile and a half up.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We actually saw that come into effect in the UFC where Cain Velasquez, who was known for his a
It's
cardio
got
machine at
stamina. Yep.
heavyweight, went to
Mm,
Mexico City and dropped his belt
yep.
because of the altitude there. So definitely has a factor. Give me a couple of moments here to look it up and see
Yeah.
exactly where it is. It's in Guadalajara.
Okay, I don't know the elevation there, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but this is something that we
Okay.
will be checking out before Monday or before Thursday's picks. That's for sure. Miguel, that's good
Yep.
information. That's
It's
fun.
about a mile up.
It is a mile up. It is a mile up. And we
5,000.
have to assume that Canelo's more acclimated to his hometown, even though he doesn't live there full time now. We get that, but we got to assume Canelo's more used to that than a guy who comes from an island. you
Yeah, no,
know?
absolutely. All that is a factor. The Mexican, and I'm glad that you brought that up. And that's why people are really following Ryder, or did Ryder stay at home and do his normal training camp because that's been good enough his whole career? And like I said, there's no shame in his record. Or did he say, okay, let me hit the Big Bear, or let me go to, the Swiss Alps or
Yeah,
Austria.
something
I think there have been camps in Austria that like the Klitschko's did and things.
to
Let
get that
me,
elevation.
yeah, let me go. So did he change it up, do something sophisticated? That would be something that you want to make a mental note of. And if not, going to Mexico City is not, or going to a place a mile up. You're right; it's not to be underestimated.
No, no, no. It can be brutal. I mean, I've seen it really, really affect sports.
And
So
to bring that up, the one fight that we talked about, which is Moraes and Johnson in the rubber match, that's going down in Denver. And
yeah, that's right. That's right.
for fans of combat sports, that fight card also has a Muay Thai world title fight. And if you can find odds on this fight, this will be very interesting because they're bringing the world champion Muay Thai guy who's phenomenally entertaining. They call him Rotang. So you just want to watch this guy for the entertainment value, right? But they're bringing in a kid from Mexico to take him on. This kid's 30-4, legs like tree trunks, and wants to come forward. And he knows that Thailand is exactly sea level.
Right.
And Rotang may be in California for a training camp or whatever, but we're talking about a lifetime of your
It's not the
body
same.
adjusted to that,
Yeah,
and the other guy's the other way.
that's
So
right.
he knows that's his best chance in that fight. And if you can, the other part of it is that Rotang, for all the beauty of his Muay Thai, really, he's not a super power puncher. So a knockout is something that maybe can be avoided by Tabarez. Edgar
Nice.
Tabarez is the Mexican's name. So that's another one you'll want to look at. And of course, the uh, the altitude is going to be a factor this weekend.
Yeah, all around, and all these in two of the three fights, the cards that we're interested in. Again, ONE FC with Demetrius Johnson, Mighty Mouse, and UFC Aljimain Sterling, Henry Cejudo. No real altitude in that fight to mention, I don't think. And then, of course, Canelo Alvarez fighting in his hometown of Mile High against John Ryder. It's really going to be a fun weekend, honestly. Do you know, you said ONE FC is fighting on the West Coast?
No, they're in Denver.
They're
So
in
mountain.
Denver. Okay. They're in Denver. So mountain time. So hopefully we get a nice spread of the timing of these. Hopefully we
And
get
the
to
one
watch ONE FC a little early. Who knows?
I believe, and everybody should check, but I believe if you're interested in the ONE FC, that they've been airing on Amazon Prime. Because
Okay.
I'm not in the United States, I'm not exactly familiar with what that is or how that works. I imagine it's obviously the huge Amazon company, but Amazon Prime is some type of distribution that they have there.
Mhm.
And that's where you can catch the fights, or at
So I
least some.
have it. It's really, Miguel, just to fill you in and the listeners and the viewers. Um, Amazon Prime is basically like a Netflix. It's an app on your TV or whatnot, and they have a lot of free stuff just like Netflix, because they give it to you if you're a Prime member, which is like $100 a year, because it's pretty cheap. They also offer a lot of movies for rent, so that they can make a little. So they'll bring out brand new movies and rent them for $10 or something before they, and that's part of their business model, I think, is it's on the backs of subscribers of their delivery service, and then they sell some stuff as they go.
Okay.
So very similar to Netflix. It's just, the only difference is it's a pain when you go there to make sure you're on a free line and not something you have to pay for. So you just have to pay attention when you're on there. You don't
But
get excited
hopefully,
about a movie.
hopefully some people out there have that service already, and they have not been
Yeah.
catching one, because this
Yeah.
will maybe, you can sign up for it and catch it. ONE actually has been consistently delivering
That's right.
shows on the that platform.
And
So,
it won't
it's
be,
not like it's a
it's,
one-time thing. They've got a
and it's
good deal.
not that rare, Miguel, just to let you know. They've moved NFL's Thursday Night Football is exclusively on Prime now as well. And you know
Oh,
how fervent and dedicated NFL fans are.
yeah.
So Prime is not a niche thing in the States. It's right there with Hulu or Netflix, at least when it comes to sports, because they do have the NFL already. So
Well, good for ONE, for, they've got a mountain to climb to get in front of the mainstream audience in the United States. But I think for our fans, they're not the mainstream guys. We'll be talking to hardcore fight fans here. this weekend will be something to watch because you're going to see, I think, production value that's on par with the UFC. You're going to see they're starting off with the 135 pounders, so you're going to see skill on par with the UFC. They're going to show you, grappling championship. They're going to show you Muay Thai world championships. And why is that a little bit different? Because the UFC brass right now is concentrating on slap fighting. So,
Don't say
you get a little purity of the love of the sport out of one that hopefully some of our fans will appreciate. Give you one more fact they've been tossing around. They've been tossing around that you watch a UFC, basically 62% of the UFC fights go to a decision. In one,
right.
that number is about 30%.
Yeah, you had mentioned this. They
So
really they're throwing down at one. Wow.
the one has different rules. You'll see different rules. You're allowed to kick a downed opponent if the downed opponent is coherent and able to defend himself. So in other words, if you wind up on all fours facing your guy, you better know to, get to your back, get your head away, do whatever it is you got to do. You're not going to get a bye from the judge, the referee. So that, you see guys take a knee in the UFC so that they don't have to take shots of a certain nature that they don't want, and then they tell the ref, hey, look, he's in, one's got a little bit different dynamic, I think. And I think it would be very interesting to see how that is displayed on their first show. They went to Denver for their first show. It's the 30th anniversary of the UFC in Denver for their first show, this year. So I think, symbolically, one's doing the right things.
Yeah. But if you like the boxing and the UFC, please do subscribe, tell your friends, like and follow and all that good stuff on here and throughout our platforms. What are we on now, Miguel? I know we're on Instagram. We've got Twitter. We've got
obviously the YouTube channel.
The YouTube channel, that's our main thing. Please, that's where it all leads. We're trying to funnel you all there, of course, because this is where we want to really, these are things we can't write up in a little, I can tell you how I'm betting later in a little slip in my 330 words or whatnot, characters. But really, when you get on here, this is invaluable stuff, Miguel, and I appreciate you chopping it up with us. Honestly, I learn a lot. You point out different angles that I can go and research between now and Thursday. And we're going to do like we did on our first show and on all those shows from 2016, but we're going to bring you some nice juicy odds and get some money going again.
We'll see this. And just on the MMA side, though, Cejudo, Aljimain Sterling right now at the books is a straight pick 'em fight.
It minus 113 each. Yeah.
Minus 113 each. It basically, whichever one you want. And Johnson has much less than I think he's much less than a minus 180. 180 may be the highest I've seen him at. More in the minus 150s. So Moraes not being written off either. I think this is going to be a tough weekend to pick. If you get both of them right, kudos. If I get both of them right, maybe I can do some smack talking. I don't know.
I love it. I love it. The Cejudo fight is going to be tough. I mean, we'll get into it more later, but just briefly, I mean, Cejudo's coming out of retirement. We all kind of knew that was a bullshit retirement, but he's coming out of retirement. Aljimain is definitely at the top of his game. I honestly don't know how to pick it. I'm still thinking about it different ways. I'm going to leave this one to you as the UFC guru. I'll tell you that much.
Just real brief before we cut it off, and then we'll make the picks on Thursday. But at the end of the day, Cejudo's 135 pounds, which is the smaller weight classes, and he's now 36 years old. So there's no way he's going to be as fast as he is, no matter what. He'll be stronger now than he was when he was 23, but he won't be fast. And I think speed is the number one factor in those smaller weight classes. And Sterling, I think, is still a little more primed for that. So he's going to be facing a stronger guy. Now, Cejudo's mental toughness, skill, pedigree from wrestling and things like that, those are all still factors, and that's why he's even in the fight. But at the end of the day, he's 36. And, on the boxing world, you get 36, 38-year-old heavyweights, no problem. But on the lower weight classes, they're starting to wear out by then, and Chocolatito would be a perfect example of a guy we used to talk about a lot. And now, he's probably Still kept a good record and stuff, but he's more marginalized because he's on the smaller end of the weight scale.
That's right. Speed is going to go first before your power punches. That's just how it goes. So it reminds me of when people talk about Mayweather was old when he fought Pacquiao, so it's no excuse and whatnot. Well, to an extent, but Pacquiao's game was always about blinding speed, and that speed had faded because speed fades faster. Whereas Mayweather's, shoulder rolls, his defense, and his countering with some more power, that never goes away. That never goes away. A guy that doesn't get hit and can land good punches by counters doesn't have to be fast. He just has to be good, and Mayweather was good. And Pacquiao, I'm just saying, would have had a better chance if they fought 5 years sooner. I think we would have had a real true super fight. And that just goes to what you're saying. Speed fades first.
Yeah, and again, Cejudo, maybe, he hasn't got the mileage in his MMA career and stuff, but he put in some miles on the wrestling mats. So, like, his body's got some wear and tear, no matter what it is. And that may be what the couple of years are. Taking a couple of years off is about, but, maybe you get the top performance once or twice coming out, but I don't know. Aljimain, we'll talk more on Thursday, but Aljimain is a guy that, with the Peter Yan feud, he went from looking mentally weak at times to actually looking like he controlled the whole damn thing with his mind and played mind games with him the whole time. And the way he did, if that assessment is correct, then yeah, he's operating at a pretty high level and stuff. And he won't be intimidated by Cejudo's sometimes overwhelming mind game.
Right. That is kind of how I feel about it. I think it's a real good fight. It's a real tricky one. If you made me put my money down now, I'm going to go with Sterling.
Thursday.
That's right. Thursday it is. Yeah. Hey, that's all I've got for now on this wage rage. Miguel, always a pleasure, man.